Inasmuch as there can be a benign dictator, Tito was such a person, and his popularity and political instincts would enable him to hold power for almost 30 years.
Tito was probably one of the more popular leaders during the Cold War, and he was able to lead Yugoslavia for a long period of time by trying to unite the various republics under this Yugoslav identity.
Tito's early life contributed to his popularity while in power, paving the way for his long reign.
Tito was born in the late 19th century. He was Croatian and Catholic. As a young man, he was a worker, and he fought in the Austrian-Hungarian army in World War I, was called prisoner on the Russian front, and as a prisoner of war in Russia, he discovered Bolshevism and enrolled in the pro-Soviet units formed among POWs.
In the 1930s, Tito traveled to the Soviet Union, where he impressed Stalin, who appointed him head of the Communist Party of Yugoslavia. When the Germans invaded Yugoslavia, Tito led a large army of partisans who waged guerrilla warfare against the occupiers.
It was a multi-ethnic army with no group being privileged over the other groups or favored. And Tito was the commander-in-chief, and they achieved a number of victories over the German army, to such a point that the German army withdrew from Yugoslavia.
By late 1944, the partisans, with Soviet support, had liberated much of Yugoslavia. And the following year, Tito was elected prime minister. Through 1945, Tito consolidated his power as dictator through fraudulent elections and Soviet-style purges. However, Tito's main challenge upon taking office was how to manage his relationship with Stalin. The Soviet Union had emerged from the war with most of Eastern Europe firmly in its grip. Tito, however, wanted Yugoslavia to be an independent communist state.
He didn't accept to be patronized by Stalin, but Stalin wanted him to behave like an obedient mouthpiece for him. And Tito wanted a certain sense of autonomy. He wanted to be, to say it bluntly, the Stalin of the Balkans.
In 1948, Stalin tried to purge the Yugoslav leadership, and it's likely he tried to have Tito assassinated several times. When all of this failed, he excluded Yugoslavia from the Cominform, the alliance of Eastern European communist countries. Diplomacy became Tito's strategy to remain in power. He turned to the West, becoming a de facto member of NATO and positioning Yugoslavia as a neutral country. Western nations recognized the benefit of being on good terms with a nation so well placed strategically. In 1950, the US loaned Yugoslavia $40 million to help keep its economy afloat. After Stalin died in 1953, Tito's relations with the Soviet Union improved, but his commitment to neutrality remained firm. Challenges to Tito's rule came not only from the outside, they also came from within. Yugoslavia was a federated nation made up of 6 republics and 2 autonomous provinces, each with distinct ethnic identities. To remain dictator, Tito had to keep these republics together by suppressing nationalist movements. One way he did this was to cultivate the myth that every ethnic group had contributed to the defeat of the Germans in World War II. He also fostered the idea that the disparate republics had a common enemy in the Soviet Union. In addition, Tito's ability to borrow money from the West kept living standards high, reducing the likelihood of discontentment that might lead to ethnic tensions.
He tried to ensure that communism didn't force people to suffer. He was willing and open-minded about taking a different pathway with communism, not only just being the leader of the non-aligned movement to distance himself from the Soviet Union, but also ensuring that the style of communism that the Yugoslavs faced was a little bit softer, a little bit less repressive.
Though relatively benign and liberal, Tito did have a secret police which he used to suppress opposition. Especially in the early years of his regime, he ordered thousands of political opponents to be sent to hard labor re-education camps. Tito died in office in 1980, aged 87. From that moment on, Yugoslavia began to lose its cohesion. Over the next decade, as each constituent republic asserted their independence, political and ethnic divisions eventually devolved into civil war.
Tito's legacy was one of political daring, of political boldness, of political vision, but also a legacy of illusions. It was fundamentally a test for the possibility of multiculturalism and multi-ethnicity. And one can simply say, if it didn't work in Yugoslavia, would it work somewhere else?
Tito's shrewd diplomacy helped him stay in power for almost 3 decades. But Yugoslavia without Tito fell apart. It revealed the dangers of dictatorships and how they might hide deeper problems rather than solve them. Half a century earlier, in Spain, another